Hi, this is The Greatest Story Ever Played. I'm Dan.
I'm Kevin.
And today we're going to be talking about Journey. I guess, obviously, we've got Kevin here, so brought in my friend Kevin to talk about the game Journey. I thought this would be cool. Kevin's a guy who's definitely into story, especially with like TV and movies. He's kind of the guy that I know who knows about good movies that you need to watch kind of thing. But he also likes video games, so when telling him about this podcast, he'd mentioned Journey as a game that he really liked, that he thought was cool, and that I should check out. And so I thought, what better person to talk about this game with than with Kevin himself. So, yeah, here we are. So with that little description of the game, it says that we're going to explore the ancient, mysterious world of Journey as you soar above ruins and glide across sands to discover its secrets. Play alone or in the company of a fellow traveler and explore the vast world together, featuring stunning visuals and a Grammy-nominated musical score. Journey delivers a breathtaking experience like no other. So, a little background on the game. It's developed by That Game Company, and they're known for a couple games. They have a game called Flow and then a game called Flower. My understanding is that you're a flower on a windowsill.
That's pretty much it, yeah. They've also done this new game called Sky, which actually looks really cool. I didn't even know about it until, I'd kind of wrapped up Journey, and I thought, I wanted to see what this company was up to. So I just searched on YouTube to see what they were up to, and they've got this game called Sky coming out, where you play as these shadow children, I think is what they called it, and you're in this stunning visual landscape, pretty much like Journey. There's these huge mountains, and there's this kind of free flow wandering sort of gameplay. And what the developers were talking about was how a lot of people, after they finished Journey, they said, hey, I love that game, I wish I could have played it with my wife or my kids, or to make it a family event. And so I think that's how they built this game from the ground up, was like, let's have the kind of the emotional weight and the impact of Journey and that amazing gameplay, but let's make it so that families can play together, which I think just sounds really, really cool. And if you look at the gameplay demo and the trailer, I mean, it's a work in progress, but you can tell what they're going for, and it's really impressive stuff.
So you could have like 3 or 4 people play at once?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Oh, cool. That sounds awesome. Mm-hmm. Definitely will be worth checking out in the future, because these games definitely are unique.
Yeah, Dan, have you played Flower or Flow?
I haven't.
Okay, I've actually played both of them. Both I played on the PS3, probably like 8 years ago, it feels like. So they're pretty old. But Flow, you kind of play as this amoeba, and you sort of swallow other amoeba creatures, and you grow, and you kind of like, you keep adding on parts to yourself. And the point of the game is you keep going deeper and deeper into these bigger levels, basically.
Oh, cool.
But it's really fun, and it kind of the first game to put this company on the map for me. I had never seen anything like it, and I thought, man, this is great. I'd like to see whatever these guys are up to next. And then again on the PlayStation 3, they came out with a game called Flower, which you're a flower, and you kind of play. Well, I think you play as the wind actually, and you move the wind to kind of help create more flowers and spread more pollen or something like that. But again, another game where I was like, I've never played a game like this. I've never seen anything like this. It looks really good. It's really intuitive. If you remember, the PlayStation 3 kind of had a motion control element to its controller, and that's how you controlled your wind. Was you kind of lean forward if you wanted to go faster. You could pull back, or you could go left or right, and you kind of swirl around using that. And again, I just thought it was really cool and a really interesting way to play a game that I'd never played like that before.
Yeah, no, that definitely seems to fit their thing, is kind of taking the PlayStation or whatever and saying, okay, what can we do with it, and like how can we kind of take some of those to parts that are underutilized, like the motion thing or something like that. So that's kind of cool. As also mentioned in the description, Journey got nominated for a Grammy, which is pretty wild. And it actually was the first video game that's ever had that happen to them, where their score got nominated for a Grammy. It ended up losing to some movie that I can't remember, but Trent Reznor did the score. So,
oh wow!
If you're losing to Trent Reznor, I'm sure you feel pretty good.
Yeah.
If someone's gonna beat you at music,
so they're the only game to ever get nominated for a Grammy.
I for music.
Wow.
At least at the time. I don't know if any have since, but Journey was the first.
That's crazy to think about.
And this game is from 2013 or something. So it's like
older.
Yeah, it could be the only.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be surprised. But,
yeah.
So that's pretty cool. As we've been saying, there's a lot of unique things about this game that make it pretty different than kind of your traditional game you might pick up at the store. So one thing that's pretty different is that there's not dialogue in this game at all.
Right.
You don't speak in cutscenes. No one speaks to you.
Right.
There literally aren't words.
Yeah, your character is this unnamed traveler, and there's no gender, there's no real face or any really identifying marks other than you have this cloak on it. You kind of looks like the Jawas from Star Wars. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, me too.
And I know that makes it sound so weird, but I feel like that makes it even better that, you basically are this character. Like you're implanting yourself on this character because there's no dialogue, there's no real like identifying marks on you. It's just this is you. Although I kind of lie. Your identifying mark, you can make a noise, and that's your mark for your character, which I thought was really cool.
Right.
And then each time you play through, you get a different mark.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you look like a Jawa essentially, and you have a magic carpet, like Aladdin, kind of. So
yeah, pretty much.
That's what you kind of look like, but that's kind of where it is. So that's kind of a unique thing. Another big thing in this game is it's very immersive visually and like musically, like as stated above with the Grammy score. But like that kind of stuff, like that's a big thing that really brings you in this game more than I don't know, other things that might try to hook you. It's like the environment and the feel.
It's pretty cinematic because it seems like music cues will cue up to events in the game, so you get to a new world or a new level, or you walk under a certain object and it cues the music, and it just makes you feel that much more into the world, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, they really, really did that well. And so I guess on a related note, we did talk about some of their other games, but aside from them, have you ever played any games that are like this at all? Like,
I feel
it's
like
pretty unique and strange.
I don't normally play games like this. I think this one, I think if it weren't for word of mouth, I don't even know if I would have played it back then.
Sure.
I think I even got it on a sale. It was pretty cheap. And I was like, well, we'll give this a try and play it. But I don't normally play games like this. I do play a lot of story-based games, but this one I wouldn't have, like, seeked out by myself.
Right. No, I'm similar vein. I think I also picked it up on a sale. I might have got it for $5 or something. And for $5, 100% worth it. Just
Definitely.
for this experience and what it's like and all
Right.
that. Totally fit. I was thinking the game that I've played that maybe is most similar-ish to this is Dear Esther. But even that has dialogue. In that game, you walk around in an island and a story is told to you through journals. You kind of find out what happens. And it similarly has like a good score and it looks really good. I guess anyone who's played both of these games, or one of these games but not the other, I guess, I would say Dear Esther probably looks better, like because there's a part where you go on like a river, an underground river. It looks great. It looked like the National Park should use that game to show how good their parks look. It's fucking cool.
Right.
But Journey, on the opposite end, I would say, has much better gameplay. I like the music more. I like the sceneries and stuff like that. It was great. But I would say it's most similar maybe to a game like that. But Journey definitely has more gameplay. So if you were someone who played Dear Esther and were like, you only walked, you would like this more because you do
Yeah,
more.
there's kind of that joke of games being walking simulators, and I feel like this one kind of fits that bill.
Right.
Because that's all you do the whole game is walk. And I know that might make it sound super boring. It's really not a boring game at all, but it really does fit that bill of a walking simulator.
Yeah, it definitely would fit into that genre. But I did think you did get to do a little more, as we'll talk about in a minute. But
Right.
that you did have actions. It wasn't strictly walking and finding a story. It was a little more than that, but definitely less than most games.
Right.
I guess with that, we'll head into kind of a recap of what happened in the game, tell you the story, and so forth. So, of course, this is spoiler-filled, so if you want to play Journey, go play it and come back. Otherwise, we'll spoil the shit out of it. So, with that, the game starts off, and you wake up in this desert, and you go and you find kind of the first symbol that's in the game. What you end up finding out kind of leads you through your varying levels. The symbols are a big part of that. So you find your first symbol and you kind of get used to the controls about how you're walking and kind of getting used to the world. That's where it sort of starts you off on.
Well, what I thought it was really interesting how intuitive the controls are and how it sort of leads you and makes you use all of the things you can do right in those first couple minutes of gameplay.
Yes.
And it does a good job of showing you, here's how you do this, here's what you want to do if you see this. And, every game does this, but I feel like Journey excels in it because they use visual cues really, really well. If you see this huge desert landscape, you see this bright shining point off in the distance, and you're going to start walking to that. Or if you see a little building, you're going to start walking towards that.
Right.
And it's just a smart way of not telling the person or the player where to go, but showing them, hey, you should go see what this is about.
Right, the whole showing rather than telling
right,
kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, and with that too, for a game with tutorials, normally, you have some guy who tells you how to play the game essentially, or,
right.
Or even like the controls will show up on the screen to tell you what to do or something.
Right.
This, instead, it's like, you'll figure it out. We'll point you in the right direction and you'll figure it out.
That's another thing I wanted to point out is there's no health bar, there's no heads-up display, there's nothing interrupting the screen. There's no hearts or anything like that. It's you'll know if you're about to die. You'll know if you're doing something you're not supposed to.
Right. And you'll know where to go, like you said, with
right.
like a light in the distance or something. Like, all right,
right.
I guess I'm supposed to go that way. Like,
no maps, nothing like that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's pretty interesting. After this, your first real level, once you've kind of gone through this tutorial, is that you need to rebuild this bridge to cross your journey. And so what you end up doing is there's, chunks of bridge that are up, and then there's chunks of bridges that are on the ground. You go there, and then you free a magic carpet, essentially, which then rebuilds the bridge for you. And then you slide your way across the bridge and on to the next. So that's cool. Like, and that introduces something new with the magic carpet showing up, and you're, okay, how do these work? And putting this back together to get across.
And I think that was a neat way to kind of break up the walking, is all of a sudden you're able to kind of float along certain parts and stuff like that. Just a way to, speed things up or show you a different way of traveling, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
And I think this is the first point where you learn if you, make your noise or you hold that button down, you can sort of activate those magic carpets to kind of help you along and stuff, which was really interesting.
Right. And if you're like close to them, the magic button will draw them to you.
Right.
So, yeah,
right.
That's cool. Yeah. So you meet the carpets there. That's great. After this, you end up climbing up a tower after you've met more carpets, and they help you up your way up through this tower. Once you go up the tower, you go back down the inside of it, and you find this destroyed city that you make your way through, and you're kind of surfing, almost, is how I would describe it.
Right.
Because you're going fast, and if you use different things that are kind of like ramps, you'll like keep your speed.
Right.
It really felt like Mario Kart to me.
I get that, yeah.
Which maybe I don't play enough racing games, but that was my main comparison. I was thinking about that.
It actually, a lot of this game sort of reminded me of, for Nintendo 64, there was a Star Wars Pod Racer game.
Oh.
And something about the way you float in this game and the desert and all these different environments you're in, it kind of reminded me of that for some reason. So I guess if nothing else, it's nostalgic.
No, right. So, yeah, that's fun. You end up surfing your way through the destroyed city, seeing kind of what's going on. After this, you end up going into some tunnels below the city, and you see these giant kind of snake-like rock monsters.
Right.
They're called guardians, and they're kind of swimming in the air. Or is it water here at this point? It might be water now. I forget.
I think it is.
I think it is water. Once you go down below the city, it's water.
Right.
Which then that made me feel like Donkey Kong on Super Nintendo.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It felt like that.
It kind of reminded me of the water temple from Ocarina of Time.
Okay.
So again, being underground or being underwater and having like the blue and like the noises sort of all reminded me of that.
Yeah, and so you're going. The Guardians are kind of swimming through, and you need to kind of evade your way through. And this was pretty well done because for me, I definitely felt kind of scared as this was going because it's kind of dark, it's water, they're kind of creeping around, and you're just like, don't get bit, or whatever.
Yeah. Did you ever fail on this? Like, did you get caught at any point?
I didn't.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
I do get caught later once.
Right.
Where it hit in the snow level later, it hit me.
Right.
One of them hit me.
Right.
But I'd managed to make it through this one all right. That was pretty cool. I really liked the visual here. I thought this was great, the underwater, and the surprise element of other beings. Cause
sure.
Otherwise, we'd just seen the carpets, so I didn't know anyone else alive we were going to even see them. So.
Well, and that's another cool thing about the gameplay, the sound design of the game. These things sort of make this like whooshing noise as they pass over you, so it makes them feel gigantic, and it's kind of creepy, right? Yeah. You have these giant things that are just kind of swimming above you, and if you get caught, you die. You have to go back to where you were before.
Yeah.
So I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool surprise. After this, you end up making your way through the tunnels, and you arrive at this temple. And what you end up having to do is rise the water levels to get out of the temple. And so there's varying carpets you use to jump up and so forth. And as you hit the different symbols, the water of the temple. Once you're out of the temple, you get to scale this mountain that is snow-covered. So this is cool. Again, I really liked how this looked, and didn't expect to get a snow level after I thought it was going to be all sand. So it was cool seeing in the back half of the game it went from sand to destroyed city to underwater to snow. Like it just changed a lot.
Well, and this is the part where you start to run into a lot of wind kind of pushing on you.
Yeah.
And again, it changes the gameplay up where you have to learn how to time things just right to get from one part to the next part without getting pushed off the mountain or pushed back to where you were before or something like that. So I feel like each section sort of adds more and more little gameplay moments that make you do something just a little bit different. Yeah,
and this one is where they really got you. So they bring in the wind element. That's hard. You're getting moved around. Then they bring the Guardians back. Instead, they're flying, kind of.
Right.
Rather than being underwater. So then you're like, okay. And then there's like almost boxcars, essentially, that are kind of scattered throughout. So you're like, okay, hide behind the boxcar so the wind doesn't blow me. Okay, the wind's not blowing me. Run to the next one. Guardians come in, go inside it. Like, and you have to kind of make your way, which was cool. This back section is definitely my favorite part of the game.
Right,
really,
I agree.
Really enjoyed
I
it.
agree.
You end up making it past the Guardians, and you keep walking through the snow. As you walk more, you see that the snowstorm is kind of coming in more. It's harder to see. You're getting slower. You ultimately are going so slow that, like, it's almost painful to use your controller to keep going because you're not fucking going anywhere. And then you collapse.
Right.
When this happened for me and being in the snowstorm, it really reminded me of this German movie called Stalingrad from like the 90s. It's a really awesome war movie about the Germans sieging Stalingrad, the Russians. And it's like one of those war movies that's like the most nihilistic, like rough shit, like war is bad kind of thing. And in the movie, you end up seeing like a lot of people freeze to death and like things like that. Like it's rough. And there's parts where they're walking and you can't see anything, and you'll like walk by a frozen guy. Like it's rough. It's like that. But it reminded me a lot of that because that's how I kind of felt when I was walking.
I played the game back when it came out in 2013, and then I recently played it again to kind of refresh myself for this. And I feel like both times I was so into my character and along for the ride that it's kind of traumatic when you get to this point because you're so used to just going from point to point, and now you're going so slow and you're so tired, and like you just want to keep going, but your controller isn't going anymore. So it was frustrating, and it made me really sad. Especially when your character just doubles over in the snow. It's like, well, dude, you're not getting anywhere now. You're done. You're
done. And it almost made you wonder, like, is the game over? Like, what's up?
Right.
I guess also it kind of reminded me of being Beyond the Wall in Game of Thrones too.
Yeah.
Where it's all Iceland. But
Yeah.
just this rough tundra. But
Yeah.
you collapse and you're like, okay, is this over? Are you dead? A much larger version of you. Something that
sort
looks
of
like
these
you.
like guardians, like, well, I don't want to call them guardians because that's the name of the flying creatures, but these gods almost.
Yeah, they're like they look like you sort of.
Yeah.
Except they're all white
Right.
and they're like 4 times as big.
Right. Right.
Something like that. So
Right.
they come to
and
you.
they've sort of been guiding you along this whole time.
Right. They
And-
seemingly consult you along the way.
Right.
At this point, they come to you and they resurrect you.
Sure.
It seems.
Yeah.
Is what it kind of felt like. They bring you back, and instead you're like souped up. Your magic flying power is at 100. It seems.
Right.
Because you're good at it.
Right.
And then you just get to fly peacefully.
Right.
Essentially to the top of the mountain. The scenery gets nice again.
Right.
You get up there. It's cool, and then you reach the top and you like walk off.
Yeah. I mean, there's that whole last section where you're flying up to the top of this mountain. It's kind of like a review of the game because you see all the elements that you've seen already. You see the flying carpets. You see the larger flying creatures. You see the evil flying creatures that you've seen before. And there's that point where you're kind of going through this like tunnel of light and clouds, and everything's sort of like swirling around you, and you're going super fast. I thought that was so cool. Such like an interesting change of pace. Because again, you've been going so slow this whole time, and all of a sudden you're moving really fast, and you have like nothing holding you back anymore.
Yeah. Because then also on the carpets, when you glide on them as the bridge style, you go faster.
Right.
That's what reminded me of the Mario Kart thing.
Right,
I think, is
yeah.
because there'd be the parts where you'd speed up because you're on them. If you like handled it right, you just get faster. And faster.
Right.
But,
Yep.
Yeah, you arrive, you see all these things, you get to the end, and then it's like, thanks for playing Journey.
Right.
And you're like, all right, like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, what happened?
Yeah.
Almost in like a good way.
Yeah. So what did it seem like to you? What do you think happened at the end?
I mean, it's kind of weird, but it seemed like almost you died or ceased to be,
right.
And now you've been resurrected or recreated, and you're like a new thing. Or
right.
something. That's what it felt like to me, and that you're like new, and now you're like you're a better I guess a better being than you were before,
yeah,
or like a more powerful,
the best version of yourself. Right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And you've come across the other side.
Yeah.
It was strange. Like I've never had a game do that or make me think or feel that.
And it's like you're kind of joining your gods or your ancestors or whatever those were that were kind of guiding you along.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's kind of my take. Are you similar take or?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, you've got these creatures that look like you that have been guiding you along this whole way, and they haven't proven you wrong, right? Like everything you've done that they told you to gets you to the next point.
Right.
So that's what I felt like. I guess I thought they were your ancestors, or maybe even like a future version of you, kind of guiding yourself along. Yeah, I thought it was really, really powerful. Especially that last point where you're kind of flying up and the music's like swelling and if you remember throughout the whole game, you're kind of unlocking the rest of these tapestries,
right?
Which is sort of shows these white beings too,
right?
So yeah, I guess that's what I assumed, is there's some sort of ancestor or a future version of you that's guiding you through this world, and to them.
And because as you went and you opened different things, you got like calligraphy almost that was given to you on the walls.
Right.
That sort of told you what happened, but really it was kind of like, okay, there was a city and now there's not.
Right.
I kind of guessed.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
I've definitely not played a game that's out there like
Right.
this, I guess, is almost
Right.
how you describe it. Like it's just kind of a different thing. Like I don't know that you could tell people elements of it, but they really have to play it.
Yeah, right. I feel like you couldn't walk somebody through everything that happened and then have them want to play it. I feel like you kind of just need to sit them down, hand them a controller, and be like, you figure it out.
No, right, and say like things that are good in this, like the music's cool, it looks good, like
right.
There's things that are sort of deal.
I will say I looked up some videos on YouTube just to see what other people thought of the game and how they interpreted it after I beat it. And there was one guy, I watched his video, and maybe we'll link or say his name if I remember. But he was saying that the game is sort of an allegory for life. You start off and everything's kind of easy and whimsical and kind of leads you along, and then you go down into like the underwater world and everything gets a little harder, and then you get kind of, I guess what he was saying was you get to like adulthood and things are kind of pushing against you and trying to push you back, and then at the end you're kind of slowing down and you die, and you end up going to, which is a little sad.
Right.
If this is an allegory for life and things just get hard and then you die.
Right.
But I thought that was an interesting take on it, and I feel like that's sort of the charm of the game, is that you can get whatever you want out of it.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the developers felt like there was one particular way of telling you like what exactly happened in the game. I feel like it's the game's called Journey, so it's your journey and you interpret it how you want.
Yeah,
which was really cool.
I would think it would be much more of a experiential thing.
Right.
I would think that's what they're going for.
Yeah.
And it seemed like even with the describing of the other games that you've played, for like Flower and so forth,
right.
like
yeah.
it seems similar in that, as if it seems their aim as a developer almost is, we want you to have this experience, we maybe want you to feel something or see something, or use your system in a way you don't normally use it.
Yeah.
Like with the motion controller, like things like that. It seems like they want to kind of hit those, and they're like, people already make all these other styles of games. We're going to hit something that's kind of on the fringes because we think that it's worthwhile.
Yeah, I mean, how cool is that to have a game where you don't say anything, you don't fire a gun, you don't really level up. I mean, you do level up. You can collect more words or phrases. You can make your scarf longer, which lets you fly more. But you don't really level up, and you don't really have benchmarks. It's just kind of you going on this one singular path.
Right.
So, yeah, I just think that's so cool that you can make a game like this. I wonder, like, the development process, like how do you even think of something like this and then incorporate these cool gameplay mechanics on top of that?
Yeah, that would be I would think that these developers would be really cool to get to talk to, like hear their stuff about it, because it seems like they're like, okay, these mainstream things are happening, we don't want to just do that, we're going to do something different, and that carves them a spot. And this game is very, for some people, like some people I can see this being one of their favorite games. There's other people who, like you mentioned earlier with walking sim type thing, they just brush it off and never play. But I'm sure there's a chunk of people that would put this in their several favorite games kind of thing, or my favorite indie game, or my like that sort of deal, which is cool. Like I think they've carved themselves out a good space.
I feel like you see this game pop up on 20 best games ever made or something like that. It's never like at the top of the list or anything like that, but it definitely earns a place on most people's lists. And I think that speaks to how unique of a game it is, that most people that play it, I've never seen anybody say, oh, I hated this game. But most people are touched and kind of get like an emotional reaction out of playing this game.
Right.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, really cool. I guess more generally about the game, for me, I don't have PlayStation Live or anything, but I read you could play it as a two-player game. Have you played it with another person before?
I did. Unfortunately, nobody plays on the PlayStation 3 anymore. Through my whole second playthrough, I didn't get a single fellow traveler. But back when I first played the game, the way the multiplayer mechanic worked is you would have another player would just sort of pop up, and you couldn't talk to them. You didn't see their player profile name or anything like that. They looked like you. They could make a noise and you could make a noise. And that's how you sort of let each other know where you were, or like, I need help, or whatever communication you needed to do. I feel like the first time around playing through, a lot of times what you'd end up doing is just, pushing that button a bunch and making these almost music, because one person would make a tone that's a little bit higher, you'd make a tone that's a little bit deeper, and you'd sort of have this back and forth conversation, and it was fun. And I feel like it was cool because now multiplayer games, you'll have some kid say awful stuff about your mom or something like that.
Right.
You couldn't do that with this game. You and even if you didn't want to be helpful, really your only choice is to go on this journey with the other player. So I think that's cool that they found they found a way to make a game where you can't shit talk and you can't troll. Really, you just have to be in the game with the other person.
Right.
And it was kind of bittersweet because maybe you'd play with somebody for 2 hours, you'd get through like a big chunk of the game with this person, but then if you had to go and come back, you're not going to get that same player ever again, or even if you did, you wouldn't know. So it was cool. It's like everybody's going on this journey at the same time, and sometimes you have somebody going with you, sometimes you're going it alone. Maybe that plays back into that guy's YouTube video where when you're on your journey, you meet certain people and they jump into your life and jump out at certain points. But I think that's cool that they just sort of drop somebody else in with you and say, okay, this is your buddy for this playthrough. And you could beat the game together if you want, if you keep playing, or you can pick it back up and have somebody new the next day.
So there's not parts where they drop off. So if you theoretically you could play with the same person all the way through.
I believe so. I don't want to say you definitely can, but I think you could. Like if you started the game at the same time with that person and neither of you quit, I could see you getting through the whole game together.
That's interesting.
Right.
Can you, like when rebuilding the bridge or something, do you have to tag team to have that work, or are you both just kind of doing it separately?
I think you're both kind of doing it separately.
But you're both near each other.
But you're both near each other, and if somebody wants to wander around and kind of look for any Easter eggs or anything like that, you could do that.
Look for more of the hieroglyphics or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And did you get all of the hieroglyphics?
Probably not.
Okay, so that's the other thing that I remember anyway. My first playthrough, I had to re-download the game, so it didn't keep this. But if you get all of the hieroglyphics, you turn into one of those white creatures when you restart the game.
Oh.
So what's cool about that is it's kind of showing
almost like a new game plus kind of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of showing, and if you have somebody playing with you again, then you're sort of this like senior dude, this senior traveler who's like done it already, and you can use your special powers to help these newer travelers on their way. Because when you have the white cloak, your scarf is as long as it can go, and I think you have unlimited flying capability.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That would really up the replay value.
Yeah.
And, I'd be more careful about getting all hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got the ones I could, but I didn't look as hard as I probably should have. So
right.
That's
I think
cool, though. That's interesting.
It's not like I did it the first time either, and I think that was part of the fun was, the first time you play for the journey itself, the second time you go through, you find all those hieroglyphics, and the third time you're like, oh, cool, I'm this senior badass traveler. I know where all the hidden secrets are. I know how to get through stuff. So when you have that new traveler come up and they see this person that you could tell has been through the game a couple times, that's like, oh, cool, they're going to help me get through.
Yeah.
They already know what they're doing. I thought that was just a really, really cool way of rewarding repeat playthroughs.
No, yeah, that's great. That's a really good way. And for a game that's not terribly long, I think it's, between 2 and 4 hours.
Yeah. I mean, you could sit through and do this in one playthrough if you really wanted to. I didn't. I don't know. Did you?
No. I actually kind of fucked up. I played half the game 3 weeks ago, and then I didn't play it at all, and then I finished it up 2 days ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And that was kind of bad because I felt disconnected. So I think that future playthrough, if I play it again, or anyone who hasn't played it and wants to, I would definitely do it in one playthrough or maybe over a weekend or something like that, just to keep the flow of it. I think my journey felt a little disrupted because I took that time off and played other video games and did other stuff. And
I think this could be that kind of game where you could have some friends over and everybody could just watch a playthrough.
Yeah,
or
definitely.
if you have a significant other or a wife and they like games, or if they like watching you play games, then you guys could sit through and kind of experience this together. Or if you have kids, I mean, why not just have them watch you do a playthrough of this and kind of treat it like a movie night or like a TV show where you can break it down and like, okay, now he's going through the desert world, and okay, now he's going through the underwater world, and oh, he's up on the mountain, he's almost there. Right. I could totally see that working.
Oh yeah, 100%. And that because it's simple and game mechanics are simple and stuff like that, it would be not a bad intro game to like a non-gamer.
Sure.
Or something like that.
Sure.
Like if your significant other doesn't play games.
Right.
You could probably throw this on and they might get down with it because it's much more experiential and stuff rather than, I need to be really good at clicking an A-B combo or something like that. Yeah. It's not as much that, so.
I found the playthrough pretty relaxing, actually. I mean, there were parts where you're kind of like scared for the traveler,
right? Like in the tunnels or whatever.
But for the most part, it's pretty relaxing just to sit down and just basically just push forward and keep going through the maps.
Right.
So they talk about how there's sort of this category for casual games, and I feel like this one falls into it as something you can throw on and beat in a couple hours if you want to, and it's fun and rewarding, but it's not something you need to be laser sharp focused on.
Right.
You're not sniping people, right?
Yeah. Low you're not going to feel tense or anything particularly like you would in a shooting game or something like that where you're trying not to die or whatever else. So it's cool. It's a good experience. And definitely worthwhile, like put it on your wish list and wait for it to go on sale or something like that if you're on the fence, or watch a playthrough on YouTube or something just experientially pretty enjoyable. Do you have any other thoughts about the game? That's kind of my general stuff regarding it. Do you have anything else?
I mean, we kind of touched on how that game company, when they made this, they wanted you to have that emotional connection to the player, and I don't know how they did it so well, but I think it's cool how they made you feel for this character and feel like you're actually on this journey. Because I mean, you could almost see the pitch meeting of, okay, we're gonna make this game where you can't talk and you don't look like anything and you're just walking. I mean, like what producer, what studio is gonna be like, okay, let's make that game? But they managed to make a game where you, like I was saying before, you get scared for the character, you get happy when they get resurrected. You go on this roller coaster with them. It's so cool how they were able to do that, and I don't know how they did it, but they did a really good job with it.
Yeah, to be able to have you bond with your character that way when there's nothing you relate to him on, like you said, they don't have any features, really. Just that you went on the journey with them or as them or whatever, and it's like, that's pretty good. And really, when any game gets you to have an emotional bond with the character, they're doing it right.
Definitely.
And a lot of games either don't do that on purpose or they just miss, but the ones that do, that's good. This one did succeed there for sure.
Definitely.
I guess to wrap up, we got a little listener feedback. Nikki on Twitter, she wrote in and said, it's such a beautiful game, so relaxing, at least to the point where I got lost somehow and gave up. The soundtrack is honestly so perfect. It would drive baby boomers mad that it's from one of those evil video games. I need to repeat, it's super pretty. Looks awesome. 100%. And that they took you to all this different geography, like we mentioned, with the snow and the sand and everything. It looks great. It sounds great. This would be one where I'm like, I should just download the soundtrack and listen to it while I'm at work or something.
You get those games that kind of pop up every once in a while where it's, oh man, I totally buy the soundtrack for that, and I think this would be one of them. I mean, that it got nominated for a Grammy, so it must be. And it's not just us. It seems like a lot of people like it, and I could see myself listening to it just at work or something like that.
Oh, it'd be like perfect for it because it's generally soothing, and then you'd be like, oh, I'm in the tunnel, and you start getting intense, and you're like,
and then those deadlines come up, you start listening to the scary music to get you
start writing mean emails.
Right.
It was cool. So that's Journey if you have other thoughts on that, please send them in to us about that, or other games that you felt like really brought some elements that this game brought. Let us know about those too. But you can email us at TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/TheGreatestStoryEverPlayed, or on Twitter at StoryEverPod. Yeah, we will see you next time.